Hello again, and welcome back to Interventions and Detentions. I'm Brad.
And I'm Kylie.
And we've missed you. It's been a week.
It's been a week.
But we're back.
Longer than a week.
Actually, longer than a week, I think.
We couldn't wait to get the episode out last week, so Brad put her on out.
Put it out there. Put it out quick. We said originally Fridays, but you know what? We're going to just put it out.
We're going to try to put it out on Fridays at 3:15.
Okay.
So, Brad,
all right.
So
I guess
we're just
slow down, Brad.
Slow down, Brad.
Bring it in, Brad.
Yeah, bring it in, Brad. So,
all right.
What are we going to talk about today, Brad?
I think based on some listener feedback.
Yes, thank you, listeners.
Thank you, Kim K, for a suggestion of talking about some SEL. And what does that stand for, Kylie?
Social emotional learning.
Good job. And tying in with that concept of SEL and social emotional learning, we're going to talk a little bit about trauma-informed practices in the primary building. We want to start by talking about trauma first, because that, to me, leads into the SEL strategies that we can use with kids that, you don't have to use SEL with just kids that have come from trauma, obviously, but I feel like that's where it has stemmed from. And just in the last few years, especially, it seems like trauma informed is a big, buzzword in education.
Yeah, definitely.
I've done a presentation with it for our principals conference down in Indianapolis, and we'll take some of that information to you today. I take a lot of that information from a book called The Trauma Informed School by Jim Sporleader and Heather Forbes. It's a really useful tool, has some great strategies in it for leaders and schools and to help support kids that have come from trauma.
And there's a lot of other good resources out there too, different books, different podcasts, different articles. If you just type in trauma informed in a school setting, you're going to come up with a lot of different things. So let's kind of, like Brad said, start with trauma and why, kind of what it is and why and how it can have such a big role in our kids' emotions and behavior, and those kind of things. So you can't always tell, you can't see it on someone's face necessarily when someone has trauma. Now, you might be able to. Someone might be crying, someone might be angry.
Right.
But there also might be someone who's smiling, walking down the hall just fine, getting their work done, but they still might have some underlying trauma. It can impact students in a lot of different ways. It can impact them psychological. So this might be, your kids that come down to the nurse's office every day because they have a stomach ache, they have a headache, they have a whatever, they just need some extra attention. That could be part of underlying trauma. And I know at a primary school, we have that a lot, though, there's kind of frequent flyers, but sometimes you got to step back and think, okay, are they really sick? Or
what's going on?
Exactly. What else is going on? Emotionally, kids can struggle with their mood. They can get angry really easy. They can cry really easy. They can have anxiety. They can
just shut down.
They might not feel as confident. Again, these can also be signs of other things. We're not saying that, if a kid has anxiety, it's because of trauma.
It's not the be all end all.
Unfortunately, it's not that black and white. I think it'd be easier if it was, but these are just some things that trauma can cause. And then behaviorally, you think about it, the kids that act out, the kids that are impulsive, but sometimes it's the withdrawn kids, the kids that are off on their own, those kind of things. The point that we're trying to make with trauma, kind of with this quick, little bit of it, is just that it looks different for everybody. So you can't just say, oh, this kid has trauma for sure, this kid doesn't.
Right. And that's the hard part, I think. And kind of piggybacking off of what Kylie led into there, also neurologically, trauma can actually affect the brain and can slow it down, the development. And, primary kids, their brains aren't fully developed yet.
They're still developing. This is kind of that crucial time.
Absolutely. So there's a big impact on the brain with trauma as well, affecting the emotional parts of the brain, underdeveloped parts of the brain that are responsible for learning and decision making, which, again, at this level is why they're here.
And I think that's why, and we're really thankful for the shout out about talking about SEL, but I think that's why we really value SEL at our school and just in general, because of the impact that it has on these kiddos. If we can catch, help them through that trauma early while they're still developing, then hopefully we can help them through that before their brains get fully developed.
Right. And we should have probably prefaced at the beginning of this episode, we are not the SEL trauma experts.
No, we are not. We're not.
By any means.
We try to do what we can for our students behaviorally, emotionally, physically, mentally, all those things. So that just kind of plays right into, what we value
Yeah,
here.
just trying to share a little bit of our knowledge in what we do, and
we are not
the experts. No. Don't want to be the experts.
No,
it's sad that we have to even be trying to be experts.
Right.
Yeah, it makes our jobs a little harder sometimes than what they need to be, but it's the world that we live in, unfortunately.
And it's good, and that's why it's important to kind of get the word out about it and get more information about it, because it is the world we live in. We need to be able to understand the emotions of our students and our staff and those kind of things too, but definitely the emotions of our students and how we can help them through those things.
Absolutely. So going back to one thing that Kylie said that I think is really important is you can't just look at a child and say, oh yeah, you've had trauma. That's why you're acting this way, or that's why you're behaving this way, or that's why you're shutting down on us. So how do you find out if a child's been through trauma or not?
Well, good question, Brad.
Thank you. There's a tool that's out there that, unfortunately, to me, you can't just sit down with a student or his parents and say, let me ask you these 10 questions real quickly. But if you can get some of this information through these questions, maybe in conversations with the parents, or just learning some background about the child, you'll know really quick what kind of trauma you're dealing with. And what I'm talking about as far as the 10 questions goes is called the Adverse Childhood Experience Questionnaire. It's also referred to as ACEs. The ACEs questionnaire.
And just a side note, we did not come up with this.
Nope.
This is research-based and something that we've learned about before and used, and it's online, and you can find it on there.
You Google ACEs, you're going to find all sorts of information.
But it is a great tool that we like to utilize.
Yeah, recently been revised, it looks like. I think they've kind of tried to pare it down a little bit. But I want to quickly just read through the 10 questions that, either... When I first heard these 10 questions myself, I got to like third or fourth question, and instantly I started thinking of a kid like, oh, I'm thinking of this kid. And I could answer yes to at least 2 or 3 of these questions. And if you can answer yes to at least 2 questions, you've got a high level of trauma or a moderate level
of trauma, in their life.
Then all of a sudden it becomes kind of more clear to us as educators why the student is the way they are or why they're acting the way they are.
The ACEs is also something that we've done in like collaboration meetings, maybe a whole staff meeting, just so that you're kind of aware of your own trauma,
right,
and how that can affect how you deal with others. So it could be used in that setting too, if you just to help your staff become more aware of the social emotional learning piece and how trauma can affect them and their students.
Yeah. So as I read through these 10 questions, and I'm going to read through quickly, you may start to think of a kid, or a kid may pop into your head like, oh, yeah, I could answer yes to this one, yes to this one, and that's makes a little more sense. Just a side note, I think the first time I read through these, I considered myself a 0, maybe a 1. That I feel fortunate having the childhood that I did and didn't have to answer yes to many of these questions. So let me just read through them quickly, and again, maybe think of a kid that pops into your head after hearing a few of these questions. So first question: as a child, I think the preface is any experiences of these that you had prior to your 18th birthday, so 0 to 18 years old. Did you feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect you or take care of you? That's question number 1.
And it's just you just check it. If it's a yes, you
no,
just leave it blank. If it's a no. So
second question: did you lose a parent through divorce, abandonment, death, or other reason? Next question: did you live with anyone who was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide? Next question: did you live with anyone who had a problem with drinking, using drugs, including prescription drugs? Next question: did your parents or adults in your home ever hit, punch, beat, or threaten to harm each other? Did you live with anyone who went to jail or prison? Did a parent or adult in your home ever swear at you, insult you, or put you down? Did a parent or adult in your home ever hit, break, kick, or physically hurt you in any way? I think I said break, and the question actually was beat. Did they ever hit or beat or kick you or hurt you in a physical way? Next question: did you feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were special? And last question: did you experience unwanted sexual contact, such as fondling or oral? And I won't go into the rest of that question because it's kind of a touchy subject. But again, being touched in an inappropriate way. Let's just put it at that.
Absolutely.
You can fill in the pieces from there. So if you or someone you know could answer yes to more than 2 of those questions, you've got a pretty significant level of trauma that you dealt with as a kid. And again, it would be nice if we could just sit down with every student and say, hey, question number 1, yes or no.
Have you? Yeah. But obviously that's not our place. We're not, counselors. We're not therapists, those kind of things. So you wouldn't necessarily sit down and ask those exact questions. But like Brad said, you can get some of that information out without even, trying to get that information. A lot of times our kids, if they feel safe and secure with us, they're going to just kind of talk about some of those things. And you would know pretty quickly if they have 2 or more of those.
Yeah. And we're fortunate being in a small rural community. Everybody kind of knows everybody. So a lot of our teachers and staff know our families, and our families have been from our communities forever. So we know a lot of that background information, whether the parents want us to have that knowledge or not. We know. And again, through parent meetings or conversations with parents, we learn, whether we like it or not, sometimes the answers to some of these questions. So it does help us as we start to realize, what trauma we're dealing with this kid and how we can use SEL to better support them.
And again, this is not the only tool that you can use to decide if someone has trauma or trying to kind of pinpoint that trauma, but it's just one tool. It's a resource that we've felt like it's worked for our students in our community in the past. And it's research based. It's something that a lot of people will tell you that they use, or a version of it. So just remember that this is not the cure all. Hey, you have trauma. Okay. But it's just a tool to help with that.
So Kylie, let's kind of start with the basics. Tell us a little bit more now. We talked about what SEL is, social emotional learning, but what is it exactly and how do we use it here in schools?
Yeah. So SEL, or social emotional learning, is helping students basically understand and manage their emotions, building healthy relationships, making good choices, kind of building off of the trauma that they've had in their past or right now. I mean, they may be going through trauma right now, and just trying to help them learn how to manage it, I would say, in kind of the short and sweet version.
Yeah.
It's really important now, especially I feel like in a primary school, just because we're still laying that foundation for academics, but also how to be a good person and their well-being. So if we can kind of pump them full of that social emotional learning now, I think it will only help them, in the future. Yeah. And really, it's not only for students or people who've had trauma.
Right.
Social emotional learning is great for all students because, again, you're learning to regulate your emotions and those kind of things.
I feel like it's that new concept and skill that it's kind of falling on schools to help teach kids, just like reading, math, science, social studies, whatever. Back in my day, your day, I don't really remember. We were taught rules and procedures and doing the right thing and being kind to one another, but we didn't go deeper than that. And I think now society and whatever, that responsibility for us as schools and teachers and educators, that responsibility of, helping our kids understand their emotions and how to deal with them correctly, how to regulate, self-regulate, things like that is now.
And how to understand the emotions. Yeah, that's kind of falling on us, which, okay, we'll take it in stride like we do. So again, just want to do what we can and kind of share what we're doing.
Because ultimately, if our kids aren't regulated, they're not going to learn. They're not going to be able to function in a classroom.
So we want to be able to help all students regulate so that we can continue to push them academically.
Yep.
So one of the biggest parts of that, and Brad, you can kind of go in if you agree or not, but I think building relationships is kind of the foundation of social emotional learning.
I would totally agree with that.
Because if students feel like they can open up to someone, or they feel comfortable with someone, they have a caring adult in their life, they're going to be able to work through emotions, those kind of things a little bit more.
Yeah, it has to be a level of trust between the child and the adult, the educator and the student, so that they do feel safe and valued.
And I think and think about it in your own life. I'll give a personal example. I go to a counselor. I talk to a therapist, but I don't, at first, you kind of, it takes a little bit to get someone that you want to talk to. And I went through a couple, and now I have one that I feel comfortable with. I feel safe to talk with. I know that they're there, to help me with my emotions, my personal well-being. And so if you kind of think about your own life like that and think about how much more comfortable you feel with someone that is caring and loving and those kind of things towards you, I mean, I think that helps us realize what our kids really do need here.
Yeah, I think we as educators, even, and when I say educators and staff, I'm talking, I feel like our custodians are educators. I feel like our bus drivers are educators.
Our cafeteria workers.
Absolutely. So that sense of being a counselor and having that role almost, whether we like it or not, once we build those relationships with kids, I think they almost see us in that light, which is a good thing. And we want that. And again, it just adds another layer to our roles and responsibilities as a school. But it's so important for our kids to see positive or to have positive relationships with, the greater school community.
Absolutely. So let's kind of dive in, Brad, to some of the things that we do here for social emotional learning. I mean, I think a lot of people do a lot of things great, a lot of work to really focus on emotions, but we kind of talked about just a few that stand out to us in our school.
And I think you're going to see that these are common among your school's
Absolutely.
Listeners and other schools that you're familiar with. It's not like we're doing anything.
Whether you call it social emotional learning or not, everybody's doing it because that's what we do to help our kids.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what you do. So a couple things we do, we try to do check-ins throughout the day. Maybe some of our kiddos that are struggling with emotions, having a rough day. If we see someone coming in off the bus crying, we're going to probably go and check in on them throughout the day. Just a quick, 30 seconds to a minute. Just, hey, how's your day going? Check in on them at lunch, anything like that. A lot of classrooms have morning meetings where they get together. Maybe you call it community circle.
Right.
Where you just kind of check in with everybody. I know when I was in the classroom, we did that every day just to kind of get the day started, any important announcements, and just make sure, you can kind of help gauge how your students are feeling that day. Brad, you do something called monthly town hall meetings. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So this is on a larger scale. We do it by grade level right now. I've done it different ways in different buildings. We've done it whole school. I kind of like the smaller intimacy setting of a grade level because you can really focus on what it is they're dealing with, or we do celebrations. We do, hey guys, we need to work on this skill a little bit better. We talk about our life skills. We honor students of the month who have shown that life skill. Yep. The teachers get a chance to share out positive things that their students are doing in those town hall meetings, and also again, hey class, we need to work on this a little bit better. So it's really an opportunity for a grade level to sit down and hear from each other, the great things that are happening, remind them of just everyday routines, practices, procedures, life skills. We hold it once a month, takes about 10 minutes. We've done it in the gym. Most recently, we're doing it right out in the hallway from their classroom. I kind of like that, a smaller setting. We have really good captivating audiences. It seems like the kids are really starting to take a hold of it. And I think it's just something that we'll continue to do. It's another good way of communication and relationship building for our students in the building.
Check-in.
Absolutely.
We have our school counselor does a wonderful job meeting with different groups of students. So I would call them SEL groups. But I don't know. She has different groups. Like, there's anger management groups.
Right. Social groups, friendship groups.
Just different things that kind of fit all that social emotional learning. How to keep our hands to ourselves, how to be better friends.
Yeah.
I mean, all those different things. We've done a grief group before.
Yeah.
For
Brought in
students.
Aaron's House support and divorce groups, different things. Try to hone in on what some common themes might be across kids in the building.
And again, we're not maybe hitting every single kid that could use those services, but we're providing what we can as a school and, in the time constraints. So we're trying to provide those opportunities. We do sensory breaks for students, kind of going on to the emotional regulation side. We also have our sensory room, which we've talked about before in a podcast, where we have a room designated for students to be able to go into, if they're angry, if they're upset, if they're sad, and just different tools and regulatory strategies that they can use in there. And then we also really focus on the zones of regulation here at our school. We have them posted around the building. We have flip charts. Every teacher has one on their lanyard. So that they can say, okay, what zone are you in? Are you in the red zone? How can we get back to the green zone? Are you in the blue zone? We try to use the same language throughout the building. That's just something that we've really tried to kind of beef up this year.
Yeah, I've really liked it because the kids are really taken to it, using the characters from the movie.
Inside Out.
Thank you, Inside Out, so they can relate
How
to
could
that.
you forget that? Because that was our Halloween costume.
Yes, it was. I was anger.
He was angry.
Check out the Facebook post. I don't know. I have a hard time remembering movie titles like
All
this.
right,
So
okay.
wasn't on my hit list. I did watch it. It was a good movie, but our kids know it, and
Our kids know it, and they can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm in anger right now."
Yeah, I'm in
or,
the red
"Oh,
zone."
Yeah, I'm in the red zone, and
Yeah.
it's just been a really good way to get everybody on the same page. Actually, our elementary school has started to use it a little bit too. So when our
Yeah.
kids leave from here, it'll start translating up to there. I think it's a really good. It's a good program if you've never checked it out before.
Yeah, and I guess I would kind of finish with that. Speaking of zones of regulation, and we as adults, when we're dealing with kids who are maybe in the red zone or not in the green zone, we got to stay in the green zone. We've got to stay regulated for those students, and it's hard. I can be dysregulated really easy when a kid does something or makes a bad decision, and I'm like, dude, you know better, and I'll get frustrated. But again, if I deal with that student from that frustration level, that's not going to help them at all. And it's probably just going to make the situation worse. So it's really important for us as the adults trying to de-escalate or to bring a kid back to regulation, for us to stay regulated as well. If not, I don't think it's going to have a very good outcome for anybody.
No, but it can be hard, and we know that. And because a lot of the times, some of the adults have gone through similar traumas that the students might be going through too. So it can bring up some things, but it can also be a really good way to kind of relate even deeper with students, in that kind of way.
Right. So when it comes to bringing these kind of strategies to your building, again, most of you are already doing these things.
Absolutely.
If you're not, you're probably a little behind the 8 ball right now, so you need to catch up. And again, this 20-minute podcast is not going to be the be all end all source. It's just to give you some ideas, thoughts, and strategies of, hey, that's what they're doing, we're doing this, we're doing good things together. But implementing can be a little hard. There's lots of opportunities out there for training. Again, if you Google SEL, trauma-informed learning in schools, you're going to find tons of information to help you out.
And when you're implementing these things, remember it's going to take some time. It's not going to be, you're not going to come to school tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to start doing this, this, and this to help our students emotionally.
Right.
It's going to take time. It's going to take training, like Brad said. It's just going to take, getting everybody used to it, those kind of things. So don't get discouraged. Keep working. Again, most of us are doing these things in our buildings anyway. We just maybe don't use that buzzword of SEL or social emotional learning. So just stay consistent, keep working on it, keep building those relationships, and just remember that everybody has some trauma. We all have to work through it in different ways. And if we can understand that and help our kids do it now, it's going to benefit them in the long run for sure.
Sure. And I would say as a school leader or teacher, if you're struggling to figure out, like, where do I begin to bring some of these things to my building or to my classroom even, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to us. You can find us at Central Noble Primary. It's real easy to find on the internet. Neighboring schools, neighboring classrooms. Like I said, this is not something new that we invented this. I wish we did, because we'd be on the road selling books and giving big talks. But reach out to your peers. They can help you and kind of point you in the right direction. Again, internet's a great resource. Google it. You will find lots of stuff, probably almost more overwhelming than just thinking about where do I start. So,
but remember, we're all in this together. We're all here for the kids. That's kind of our main focus. So using everybody as a resource, definitely going to be the best thing. Yeah.
So again, we always appreciate you joining us. We appreciate the feedback. It gives us ideas of what to talk about next time. We already have an idea for next time. And what are we going to talk about next week, Kylie?
Next week,
it's that time of year.
It's that time of year. One of our favorite things that go on right now, virtual learning. I think everybody can, maybe not everybody, but I think everybody can kind of understand virtual learning, e-learning, synchronous learning, all the learnings
that are happening not in school.
Yeah, not in school. Any learning that's happening not in school during these winter months. So we would like to dive into that a little bit, maybe get some tips, tricks. If you have any tips or tricks that works great for your school, please reach out and let us know.
Yep.
Because we're not the best at it, but we're working through it, and we'd love to hear what you do and how you handle that,
How you handle
especially
it.
in a K2 building.
Yeah, I think, and we'll talk about this next week without going into the next episode, but just the challenges of being synchronous, especially with the young kids, can be a challenge, not only for the kids, but for the teachers. So I'm excited to bring that topic to you. We hope to have a guest join us. We may not.
We're hoping.
We'll see. But if not, we'll talk all things virtual learning next week on weather-related closings or wherever you might not be in class learning in front of your teacher versus in front of a screen learning from your teacher. So, what do you think, Kylie? Any funny stories to end the day on?
Ooh,
I got nothing.
I got nothing. I don't think so.
We had a 2-hour delay today.
It was nice.
It was cold,
It was cold.
snowy. Got a lot of snow yesterday. It's
lot of
Indiana in January, so that happens a
That
lot.
happens. We're used to it.
Even more cold coming next week, so that should be interesting, and that's why we kind of picked this topic, because we might not have school a couple days next week. So anyway,
On that, Brad,
is it time?
I think it's time.
Oh, thanks
As
for joining
always,
us.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We look forward to hearing some feedback and some questions from you. And
And you are,
I'm Kylie.
and I'm Brad.
And class dismissed.
Dismissed.